The radical left's agendas are challenging American values. But conservatives like you haven't forgotten what this country was built on. My friends, the Heritage Foundation exists to make sure your voice is heard and to represent your values in the D.C. swamp. The Heritage Foundation stands for your values and won't give up the fight because they know you never will. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. It's August 1st. Can you believe that? You know what happened 112 years ago today, Mr. Producer? Neither do I. No idea. I haven't looked it up. I'm corny, I know. I have these corny jokes. It kind of drives my family nuts, especially my wife. We'll walk into a restaurant nowhere near an ocean, and I'll say to the person seating us, may I have an ocean view? Now, either the real... What's that? Dad, is that what those are? Dad jokes? So people either really laugh or they look at me and say, there's no ocean here. Oh, okay. Things of that sort. Got a lot of them. Most of them are corny, but that's the way it goes. Harmless. Even though hire me for a progressive commercial, but I want nothing to do with it because it's called Progressive and it's left wing and they're friends with Clinton, the insurance company, you know. Well, there's a lot to talk about, and I want to talk about a lot, but there's also things that I want to talk about that are not in the news, but that are important. And that's the nature of the beast when it comes to this platform, which I love so much. And I truly do. And it's because of you. Because of you folks. It's really appointment radio because, let's be honest, the time of this program kind of sucks, doesn't it? 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time, particularly for those in the Eastern Time Zone. But here I be. Or here I be at. Nonetheless, I've been doing this a long time, so it's a time zone, or I should say a time slot that we own, and I want to thank all of you for that. We're talking a lot about this guy, Mamdani. Everybody is. He's a avowed Marxist. We've talked about Bernie Sanders and AOC and Tlaib and Omar, Marxist Islamists. It is a growing cancer within the Democrat Party and in our society, despite what people are saying and thinking. Do you realize, ladies and gentlemen, 27 members of the Senate, Democrats, voted against any aid, any military aid for the state of Israel? They did it twice. That's more than half of the Senate Democrats. Which means they're effectively voting for Hamas, Iran, the Houthis, Hezbollah, the terrorists. How else can you explain it? And of course, any amount of evidence, and it's overwhelming, that demonstrates that Hamas is starving the Palestinians, or they're doing it as a desperate last effort to hold on to power, and it's having a major propaganda effect with the hard left, our media, and these grotesque so-called influencers. They're running with this stuff, and they're not going to be dissuaded. And you and I have never seen anything like this before in our lives, nothing. and we're going to push back, and we're going to fight back. We don't roll over. That's this whole Marxism thing. I spent a lot of time on this and on power, as I did in American Marxism, but here I applied it quite differently. I hope those of you who have the book, have had a chance to read it, are enjoying it. You can go on Amazon if you got it there and leave your opinions and let other people know what you think. You can call into this program as well. We're not hiding anything. We're happy to discuss everything. We're getting excellent reviews. I really want to thank everybody out there who's jumping in, or who's getting them as gifts and so forth. But I want to start with this because it kind of provides the basis for where we go with this program almost every day. Because this is a constant battle. Even when you look at the news, what's the battle? The battle's over power. When you look at what they did to Trump, what Obama and Hillary did with Russia collusion, how outrageous that was a battle over power. That's what we call negative power. And that's what we call authoritarian democracy, which is what the Democrats have become, authoritarian Democrats. I point out the Marxist utopia state and most other autocratic utopian states, or states of utopia, promised by power-hungry masterminds and revolutionaries, is, if you think about it, complete nonsense. Marx's writings, along with his partner Engels, are dripping with arrogance and anger, as well as absolute certainty and pomposity. Even a cursory examination of Marxism's application in one country and society after another proves it to be nothing more than an elaborate maze of absurdities and distortions about humanity, the impossibility of which has resulted in the misery and death of tens of millions. Stanford University professor Robert Berman explains that Marxism was never about achieving an egalitarian society. It was about the pursuit of raw power. While for others, politics represents a realm of compromise and negotiation, for Marx, it was really the pursuit of power and the obligation of command. Now, I dug this up after a ton of research. I had not known this excellent professor before at Stanford and his excellent writings, but obviously I became acquainted with him. And he goes on. He described the state simply as the executive committee of the bourgeoisie, meaning that politics was secondary to the economy. Moreover, he promised to abolish the state and therefore politics, since communism would eliminate class differences. So the story went to the ultimate outcome of communism would be a liberation utopia of statelessness. But nothing, however, would be further from the truth. In practice, what communism provided for was the development of a new class elite, which talked the egalitarian talk while claiming for itself the privilege of dictators. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I coined this. I invent a phrase to describe this as the new bourgeoisie. That is, rather than wealth being a determinant of the ruling class, it's just power. The new bourgeoisie is power. He goes on, the communist cadre always knew better than the unenlightened populace, and therefore the cadre would claim the power to impose their views and programs on the rest of society. The real political legacy of Marxism was not the abolition of the state, but on the contrary, the expansion of the state over society, and the elevation of Marxist elite over the populace, or as I've written for 20-some years, they devour the society with centralized government. Society and the culture are devoured and controlled. So as I point out, given all we know about Marxism in particular and autocracies generally, and the imposition of what I call negative power to destroy individual and societal rights and liberties, it is deeply distressing that for so many, including Democrat Party politicians and officials, broad aspects of Marxism are more prominent, if not central, in their mindset than Americanism and the essential principles of our country's founding. Now, to understand this contemporary reality is to comprehend the nature and worsening divide in our country and the profound political and social disputes in which we find ourselves. For the ruling class and its hunger for power, the American way is not satisfactory or fulfilling. The entire construct of individual sovereignty, unalienable individual rights, natural law, and so forth, and a government that is limited, divided, and representative, restrains and suppresses powers that the ruling class craves. The negative power of Marxism is the polar opposite of the positive power of republicanism. Now, for the American Marxists, the source of rights is mankind, and not mankind writ large, but a faction of men who seize power in the name of impossible fantasies and mental inventions. So the struggle is over who defines and assigns rights. Obviously, this is in the chapter on rights. Ultimately, and despite theories and ideologies to the contrary, they conclude that the power over rights, and hence the power over the individual and society, rests in whom controls government. Therefore, in modern parlance, the end game is not social justice, environmental justice, economic justice, equity, and all the rest, but raw power. The rest is nothing more than propaganda in pursuit of that power. Is that not the true end of all autocratic regimes? Power. It is certainly true of Marx's view of rights, and power from which individual rights and liberties are said to flow is an illegitimate power. That is, nothing more than a bourgeois contrivance and device. Therefore, the society and all that underlies and sustains it must be abolished. Now, for the American Marxists, the means is the relentless war on the nation's founding and founders, American history, the Constitution and the law, freedom of speech, the family, the culture, faith, and economic system, ours, capitalism. It is a real and focused whole-of-society counter-revolution. Think about Mondani and others. Think about Sanders. Therefore, it is essential that they secure power inside or as the ruling class, where they plot to hold governmental power as long as they can and pass it to succeeding generations of like-minded ideologues. The way they change the voting systems, the way they use prosecutors, the way they use judges. They are unwilling to abrogate their power at the whimsy of the voter, even when and if they go through the motions of surrendering elective office to a victor outside the ruling class. Hence the overarching importance of an omnipresent administrative state and an unelected judiciary to protect it, it being the permanent government. They are at first agencies of resistance, usurpation, and sabotage against the existing society. But eventually, as the power of the American Marxists proliferates and effectuates, it moves from the revolutionary phase to the coercion phase, increasingly taking on the characteristics of a police state. Now, just a side comment. These words are crucially important. They are critical. They're imperative. It may be that this is a book for 100 years from now. I don't know. None of us will be around. I really wish and hope it's a book for now. So it's not a book for people looking back and figuring out what happened to America, how it faltered, how it destroyed itself, but rather we, the people today, taking these words, embracing this book, and addressing it now. I go on in the rights chapter. Again, the consent of the governed and representative government via elections becomes more illusion than reality, and honored and legitimized only if the governed consent to the will of the ruling class, the will of the ruling class. Indeed, this, for the people, the working people, language, as well as their class warfare and justice-seeking declarations, are intended to deceive and manipulate. The instincts of the American Marxists are authoritarian, pure and simple. Their followers, like the rest of the people, are treated as dupes, with negative language, including righteous-sounding but self-serving propaganda. To control the government is to control the distribution and enforcement, or non-enforcement, of rights. Not God-given unalienable rights, of course, but so-called economic and social rights, which are considered the only rights that are said to matter, at least at first. The government must define these rights, since the individual, the people, are considered incapable of it through their own actions and associations. The government can assign and deny economic rights and otherwise exploit and wield them in the name of the greater cause. Those who object to the denial of individual and economic rights or otherwise stand in the way must be made to conform or face public and societal ridicule or worse. This supposed progress is, of course, inevitable, or at least while must appear to be. Shangri-La is always said to be within reach, if only the ruling class has more power and the individual less. And the individual less. The extent to which not only Woodrow Wilson, Democrat, but later Franklin Roosevelt, the most revered and celebrated Democrat Party presidents and leaders, borrowed from the Hegelian and Marx concept of rights is indisputable. It's indisputable. Indeed, on January 11, 1944, FDR issued his second Bill of Rights. As you read it, compare it to Stalin's 1936 Constitution, which is also in the book. And the economic similarities are obvious. Now, we're going to take a short break, but I do want to continue because I think it's important, and I'm trying to encourage you and persuade you to acquire your own copy of On Power so you can read this and tons more as we, as a free people for now, try and work our way through this. It's important that we share our ideas and that our ideas really are relevant and important. That's the point of this book On Power. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
In the last few weeks, some ICE agents have been ambushed, doxxed, received death threats. All this is on top of dealing with pushback from liberals in sanctuary cities. These ICE agents deserve a lot better. Americans like you across the country support the work they're doing, but they need to hear your voice. The Heritage Foundation has created a survey to gauge America's support of ICE agents, and they need your participation. So please go to heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/LEVIN to give your opinion on ICE's border enforcement and deportation efforts. ICE agents need to hear the message that Americans like you have their backs while they face daily challenges from the liberal media. Patriots like you need to stand with ICE now more than ever. 5 minutes is all it takes, folks. Please complete the survey today at heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN to make your voice heard. That's heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Heritage Foundation. All right, folks, we only have a minute and a half in this segment. If you find what I'm reading to you modestly interesting, I think you're going to find this book over the top compelling. This is just a little taste of it. You know, our friend Tim Graham over there at Media Research Center, he says this is a powerful book packed with a lot of power for a little book. The book isn't that little. It's over 200 pages, but it's more concise than most of my other books because I wanted it to be compact, easy to carry, and easy to read. But you will find it is filled with very, very important points, not because I say so, but I think as you read it, you'll come to that conclusion as well. Another person who interviewed me, very perceptive, I've been doing interviews all week, almost every hour, said this book is a little different than the average Levin book. It's very smart, but it's a little different. And I explained the reason is there's a lot of Mark Levin in this book, where I'm doing a lot of my own philosophizing and analyzing and reasoning and logic. I'll be right back. The ICE protests in Los Angeles were just one example of the hatred many ICE agents are dealing with every day. As they work to enforce our nation's laws and keep our country safe, some have been ambushed, received death threats, and have been berated by the mainstream media. Now, if you support ICE, the Heritage Foundation needs your help today. Please go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN right now. Fill out their survey. Heritage needs as many people as possible to participate. So if you support ICE agents, now's the time to let them know. These brave agents put their lives on the line every single day to protect our nation and to fulfill President Trump's electoral mandate. What is it? To secure the borders and deport illegal aliens who have brazenly broken our laws. Voice your opinion at heritage.org/Levin today. That's heritage.org/Levin. Takes less than 5 minutes. Heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Liberty's voice, Mark Levin. Talk with that voice now. 877-381-3811.
I want to thank you in the audience also. We've been doing very well, and our radio ratings and our Fox ratings very, very strong. That's because of you. That's because of you. And, you know, I'll keep doing it as long as you want me to do it. Can't do it forever, of course, but I want to thank you. So let's continue with our little foray, our little journey on Marxism. Virtually all references these days to civil liberties, this is right out of my new book on power. Virtually all references these days to civil liberties and civil rights are not about rights as understood by the founders. That is, in the Declaration and Madison's essay on property, but it's defined by Karl Marx. Wokeism and cancel culture destroy individual rights and the rights of the people in service to relatively small factions of people. The purpose is to, among other things, destroy the nuclear family, the parent-child social relationship, free speech and independent thought, and so forth. FDR's second Bill of Rights, as it applies to economic and social rights, is simply echoing Stalin's Constitution. Both Stalin and FDR appropriated from Marx his application of rights to economic socialism. Of course, I'm not arguing FDR was in any respect genocidal and despotic like Stalin, but American Marxism is uniquely American, which is why I coined the phrase and wrote a book addressing it at length. So the struggle between the founders' understanding of rights and the Marx-FDR Democrat Party understanding of rights, well, that's going to determine what kind of nation we become. Whether we're going to remain a constitutional republic or become authoritarian democracy, or even a more aggressive type of autocratic society as time goes on. The longer-term trajectory of democracies is not encouraging. However, I also caution that trajectories are not to be confused with actual outcomes in a given situation or here, in a given country. In America, we the people remain virtuous and resilient. Also, not only do we reject revolution, we are deeply patriotic. However, the revolution waged by the American Marxists is not sudden and violent, but mostly gradual, surreptitious, and wrapped in deceit, making effective opposition more daunting. Some have argued that it is possible for social and economic rights to exist without some form of tyranny. The problem with this view is that the negative power associated with these supposed rights of necessity diminishes individual rights and, in fact, diminishes rights as they were understood by the founders. Furthermore, if there are constitutional and legal barriers creating parameters for social and economic rights, what are they? Power shifts from the individual to the government. This is the point with Mondami and all the rest of them. Power shifts from the individual to the government. There's simply no doubt about it. Therefore, to say there are limits, for example, by arguing that rights as understood by the founders work in unison or parallel with social and economic rights, as explained by FDR, Wilson, and Marx, is not to identify them in any concrete way. Instead, at best, there's a temporary overlap, which creates the barriers to tyranny and the ambiguous social and economic rights proclaimed by their advocates. Because the truth is, Marx was right when he said socialism is the last stage before communism. If there's to be a huge shift away from positive power for a so-called second Bill of Rights, there should be an explicit understanding of what it means and where it is headed. To say, as another example, that the last century saw this huge movement toward a massive welfare state, as so many say, including entitlements and such, and that the American people have accepted it, and that these are the new rights that are now implicit in the Constitution. These are the arguments you hear. Leaves a great deal unsaid and obscured about the future of governmental power. It enables the advocates of economic and social rights to create virtually any kind of painting they wish. Impressionist, post-impressionist, but mostly abstract. When it is said that there need not be a socialist revolution associated with social and economic rights, that assertion is a half-truth. That is, while the government need not own the means of production, for example, it must regulate it. And as the regulations prove insufficient, as they cannot achieve the kind of economic and social equality, now termed equity, promised or expected, which are extravagant and impossible, the answer is not going to be to abandon negative power for positive power associated with individual and societal rights and liberty, but to tighten the reins of control and centralization. And by the way, this is what bothers me when people say, well, then let New York go Marxist. They'll learn in the reverse course. It doesn't work that way. In fact, the targeted beneficiaries and the true believers will become agitated and dissatisfied and demand more from the ruling class when their hopes and expectations are unmet. In short, government grows stronger and bigger, not less so, at the expense of the individual and society. And we're looking further into the struggle over rights, and most crucially, which rights approach will prevail. We see there is a constant struggle to be the ruling class, a constant struggle within the ruling class. We call that the swamp. And a constant struggle between the people and the ruling class. Let me repeat that. There's a constant struggle to be the ruling class, a constant struggle within the ruling class, and a constant struggle between the people and the ruling class. Again, it is positive power, the rights approach of the founders, that provides civil lanes for compromise, tolerance, moderation, and peaceful resolution, both in society and government. Negative power, this authoritarian democracy, and the economic and social rights approach provide no such lanes, and in fact weaken those that exist. To say that the people are satisfied and supportive of the massive welfare state, a welfare state that is not static, and in fact history shows is always growing and consuming, is to say nothing about the accompanying centralization and coercion of government. The role of the people continuously diminishes, including their ability to defend their individual and societal rights. And to the extent such lanes do exist, it is because of what remains of rights from the founding period. I'll read a little bit more, and then I'll stop. Now, the advocates of constitutionalizing economic and social rights, without the benefit first of a fulsome societal discussion, followed by the wide-eyed participation of the body politic in either the actual constitutional amendment processes, claim for themselves an open field on which to run. Both participatory democracy and representative republican, the hybrids and hallmarks of our constitutional system, are to be avoided and have been. At least that's what they think. The only question to be asked, according to the proponents, is the after-the-fact inquiry of whether people like and want to keep their benefits. Without more, presumably most people like to receive benefits, having become used to them if not relying on them. Does this not prove the point? That is, what are the parameters for such an approach? What are the limits on government? The Constitution, they say in reply, as they usurp and breach it in pursuit of their second Bill of Rights. But their approach is authoritarian in character. Consequently, they insist this form of rights and the further empowerment of centralized and coercive government is virtuous. If challenged, they defend the use of power as, ironically, confined by positive power, the very power they are diminishing. Moreover, they rhetorically insist that if you disagree, you obviously oppose helping the poor, the sick, and the underprivileged. Nor do you care about countless other societal maladies raised by the economic and social rights movements, including the environment, race, the economy, and so forth. So the justifications for a pervasive central government with vigorous police powers are unlimited. Therefore, the American Marxists, authoritarian democracy is a virtue. For that is where they would eventually drag us. The broad and relentless application of negative power in the name of the downtrodden is said to be a righteous calling and endeavor. And in such an endeavor does not seem to occur to these individuals, or it does, but they would rather not address it, that apart from the usual authoritarian characteristics of too much centralized power, a ruling class is not uniquely qualified, or well qualified at all, to manage society. That is, millions of individuals with diverse interests and backgrounds, collectively involved in billions of activities and interactions every single day. Despite all the written and spoken pablum about experts, professionals, educated elites, and so forth, equipped with the magic of reason, not to be confused with right reason, by the way, science, political and behavioral science, not the hard sciences, and all the rest, wisely, prudentially, and altruistically serving the greater good of society, in the best interests of the people. While we know from our own experiences as individuals and as citizenry that no such ruling class exists. In point of fact, we know that incompetence and corruption are widespread, and practical experience and common sense are in short supply. And it goes on, and I'm not going to read it further, at least not for tonight. What do you think of that, Mr. Producer? You've heard it before. You were there when I was doing the audio. Solid. And I think, again, this is just a little piece of a chapter on rights. There is a ton more to this. A ton more. And I really want you to experience this. I really do. The chapters are the overview chapters on power, then on negative power, which I explain. And so I break down power. On positive power, chapter 3. On language, we've talked about that. On rights, which is what I'm talking about now. On liberty. And then the final chapter. And this little book covers a ton of territory, as you can tell from what I read to you. If this interests you, tonight and this weekend, any retail store that sells books will have On Power. They're fully supplied. If you don't go into these locations, if you'd rather have the book delivered to you tomorrow, there's always Amazon.com. I'm grateful for all of you who want to participate in a participatory republic and who are committed to sustaining it. My fear is that with the election of Donald Trump and a Republican House and Senate, a lot of people they feel everything they've ever wanted is accomplished. We don't know what's going to happen to the House of Representatives in a year and a half, or the Senate. Both of them are up, 1/3 of the Senate and all the House. And we don't know what's going to happen after 3.5 years when Donald Trump is gone. And God forbid if the Democrats take the House, this is going to be a knuckle-to-knuckle fight like the rest. I want you, Levinites, my precious audience with whom I am blessed, to be armed with more intellectual firepower than anybody else, especially our adversaries and enemies. That's the point of the book On Power. It cuts right to the chase. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
In the last few weeks, some ICE agents have been ambushed, doxxed, received death threats. All this is on top of dealing with pushback from liberals in sanctuary cities. These ICE agents deserve a lot better. Americans like you across the country support the work they're doing, but they need to hear your voice. The Heritage Foundation has created a survey to gauge America's support of ICE agents, and they need your participation. So please go to heritage.org/Levin. That's heritage.org/LEVIN to give your opinion on ICE's border enforcement and deportation efforts. ICE agents need to hear the message that Americans like you have their backs while they face daily challenges from the liberal media. Patriots like you need to stand with ICE now more than ever. 5 minutes is all it takes, folks. Please complete the survey today at heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN to make your voice heard. That's heritage.org/Levin, paid for by the Heritage Foundation. We won the night Saturday night on Fox. I want to thank you folks, and our competition, particularly on Sundays, is very, very strong on the TV networks, particularly when there's football, but particularly when there's 60 Minutes bleeding in and golf and all the rest. And you people make the numbers possible. This I know. Tomorrow's a big day. Big day. It's our first book signing, one of really only 3, and the only one on the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Delaware areas. And I hope you'll join us. We're going to have a wonderful time. I don't leave until every book is signed. It's not like 1 to 3, which is what most authors do, and then 3 o'clock comes. They say, thanks for coming, and they leave. I don't leave until the last book is signed. So that's tomorrow, less than 24 hours away, 1 p.m., at Books and Greetings, a wonderful, independent, family-owned small bookstore. Books and Greetings. They're located in North Vale Square, North Vale, New Jersey. Mr. Producer's posted that now on all of our social sites, including True Social and Twitter and so forth. And there's a link there if you want to check it out, but you can check it out yourself, which is booksandgreetings.com, booksandgreetings.com. And I cannot thank you how excited I am to see you folks. And it's been several years since I've been out there greeting and signing books. So this is our first, but we only have 3. The other one's almost sold out. Ronald Reagan is sold out, except for people who want signed books. August 2nd is tomorrow. It's here. It's finally here. 1 p.m. Eastern, Books and Greetings, North Vale, New Jersey. All you folks in the WABC listening area and all of our listening areas, we'd love to see it. This is going to be the only signing in that area in many years. I won't be doing it again for a long time. And this is the book I want you to have in your hands. It's also the book that costs the least of any book I've ever written. It's a good value. It's under $20. And you'll see when you sit down and read it. You folks who have it and are reading it, if you got it from Amazon, go ahead and leave comments over there so other people can see them as well. I wrote the book. Nobody writes books for me. I don't have co-authors. I don't have whatever people want to call them. We all know that Camala Harris didn't write her book. She's there squawking around, making a damn fool of herself. If we have time, we'll play a few of those clips. I don't even know if she can read a book, let alone write a book. I am going to continue to press this because, I said to, we were doing our Blaze TV tapings this afternoon. I said to my 2 producers, I said to David and Josh, I said, do you remember off the top of your head 5 weeks ago my Saturday Fox show? No, of course they don't. Neither do I. If people remind me what the show is, then of course, the bulb will go off and I'll remember it. But off the top of the head, you don't. Do you folks remember what I said on radio 17 days ago? Do you remember, Mr. Producer? Of course not. Now, we have all the archives for TV and radio, and you can go back and check. But people remember the written word. I don't mean memorize a long list. I'm not talking about that. You can read a whole book, and there may be a profundity. Maybe it's a word, maybe it's a phrase, maybe it's an argument, maybe it's an opinion, whatever it is, and you're going to remember it the rest of your life. That's why I write books like this. That's especially why I wrote On Power. One interviewer, Larry O'Connor, WMAL, he said, parents, don't buy your kids college books. Buy them this one book before they go to college or before they go to high school. Just this one book, and have them read it. I hope you will. Don't go away. We'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Welcome, my friends. Welcome. It's an amazing thing, my friends, Mr. and Mrs. America out there. In that 2016 Republican primary, what were there, 15, 16 candidates? It was brutal. Some were more effective than others. You had Rubio in there. You had Rand Paul, Mike Huckabee, Ted Cruz, of course, and many others. I've known Ted Cruz a long time. He is a fantastic individual, great conservative. When Ted Cruz decided to run for the Senate, he came up to me at an event. I had no idea he wanted to do that. He'd never run for office before, and he came up, he said, "Mark, I want to run for the Senate in Texas." I said, "Well, good for you." He said, "No, you don't understand. I would like your support." I said, "Well, you got it." So in this program, he had our full support. I spoke to Rush and Sean, and they gave him full support. Sarah Palin gave him full support. The conservative movement got behind Ted Cruz. He won a primary nobody thought he could win against the lieutenant governor, who was a very wealthy man. Ted wasn't holding any office. And he won the general election. He's been a fantastic senator ever since, hasn't he? Decided he wanted to run for the presidency. Ruby decided he wanted to run. Others did too. In the case of Rubio in Florida, I wasn't really following that race, but it was pretty packed, the Republican primary. Rubio, I believe, had been the Speaker of the House down there in Florida, and he wanted to move to the Senate. Most of the people in the conservative movement had no idea, of course, who Marco Rubio was. People I know and trust in Florida told me he was the guy. I brought him on this radio program and I interviewed him. And I found him to be very impressive. He was at about 5%, definitely under 10% in the polls in the Republican primary, and we endorsed him. And he shot up to about 35%, if I recall. These were Tea Party candidates. Tea Party candidates that were riding the wave of the Tea Party revolution, of which we were a major part here on this program with my book, Liberty and Tyranny. So many great Tea Party groups. In response to Obama and in response to George W. Bush. As of today, you won't believe this, Rubio doesn't talk to this program. Now, we haven't invited him in months, but I gave up. And I suspect that's due in part because we backed Ted Cruz in that Republican primary. Maybe there's some other reasons. I don't really care. I don't really know. He's been a very good Secretary of State. That's all I care about. There was later a battle in Utah to remove a sitting senator with a Tea Party candidate. The sitting senator's name was Robert Bennett. His father had been a senator. The name was well known. I considered him to be part of the Republican establishment. And there was a young guy who wanted to be a senator. He hadn't served in any other office before either, a citizen candidate. And his name was Mike Lee. We swung behind Mike Lee, even though it was a convention process. We urged our fellow conservatives and Reaganites to get behind him. And he won. Mike Lee, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio. And there were others. There were others. Why am I telling you this? Because in the Republican primary for president, I supported Ted Cruz. Despite all the rewrite of history, Rush Limbaugh was very favorable to Ted Cruz, but he also liked Trump. I also liked Trump too, but I didn't know him. I wasn't sure who he really was. As soon as the primary was over, I had alerted Rush and Sean that I was going to back Trump, that I was going to bring as many of my fellow conservatives to back him as possible. president knows that as well. And that's exactly what we did. There was a 24-hour period, which people keep seizing on, of course, in which I declared I was a never-Trumper because I got furious. I don't even know what the reason was with Roger Stone. And I assumed he was a consultant to Donald Trump. Candidate Trump called me on the phone and said, "Why did you declare yourself that way, Mark?" I said, "Because this, that, and the other." He said, "Well, it's not accurate. Roger's a friend, but he's not my consultant." So the next day on radio, I said, well, I withdraw the never-Trumper. My daughter was a Trump supporter from day one. My brother-in-law was a Trump supporter from day one. So we didn't have anything against Donald Trump. I did have something against some of the other candidates. I didn't know him. Ted put up a hell of a fight, didn't he? So I endorsed Donald Trump before the Republican convention. And we've been dear, close friends ever since. Ever since. We pulled all the conservatives we could to get behind Donald Trump. Now, I'm telling you this for a reason. I tell you all these things for a reason. There is a difference between having a different opinion on a policy, legitimately so, thinking independently, and voicing that difference in a respectful way, and stabbing somebody in the back. There are people now who claim that you voted for Donald Trump because of them. That you would never voted for Donald Trump except for them. That they are the true power behind the movement, the MAGA movement. That they created support for the MAGA movement. In the Latino community, in the black community, in the Jewish community, in the women community, among blue-collar workers and union members, and on and on and on, that they are responsible for all the victories that Donald Trump achieved. And that he wouldn't be where he is but for them. Now, the truth is, of the 77 million people who voted for Donald Trump, the vast majority of these people, you, don't even know who those people are. You don't listen to their podcasts. You don't subscribe to them. You don't go to their seminars and their annual meetings, and you don't care. But most of them are in or around Washington, or they have influence in and around Washington. They network with the government, in the government, even though they pretend to be anti-government. And they are self-proclaimed, as most narcissists are, as both righteous and influencers. In this relatively small cabal, they interview each other, they quote each other, they promote each other. And they claim that each other is responsible for this great Trump revolution. Almost none of them were involved in the Tea Party movement. Almost none of them are involved in the Convention of States movement. Almost none of them have ever organized a damn thing. Have ever said anything profound or important. But they want you to know that they're the reason that Donald Trump is president. I've never said such a thing. I've always said you're the reason that Donald Trump is president. You. You did this. I'm just a facilitator. You did this. Now, why does that matter? Because these people are stabbing the president in the back. right now as I speak. He stands up against the Islamists who want to destroy us. They stand with the Islamists even though they pretend otherwise. He stands up for the United States and the United States military, facing down tonight the Russians who have made threats against us repeatedly. Standing face to face the Islamo-Nazi regime in Tehran who've made threats against us repeatedly. They've undermined him every step of the way. They stab him in the back. They say they have a new idea on foreign policy, which is appeasement, surrender. Nothing new about that. And nothing good about it either. They're very active as I speak. They want you to believe that you, the MAGA movement, you, the 77 million, that you've turned on the state of Israel and now you support Hamas, that you blame the Israelis for the starvation and the death that Hamas has unleashed in both Israel and the Gaza Strip. They say that's your position. They say you are becoming more and more anti-Semitic with each passing day. That MAGA is turning against the Jews in Israel, and I guess the Christians and Gentiles, other Gentiles who support them. Even though the polls show otherwise, it doesn't matter. They're telling you that the young people, particularly the males, stand with them. This is more projection. More projection than it is reality. This is what they're pursuing. This is what they want. Because they have a lot in common, this whole negative power issue, with Bernie Sanders, with Mondani. They've had, in fact, have more in common with them than they do with you and me. How many of you think that Churchill was the devil during World War II and Hitler was misunderstood? That's what they believe. How many of you think it would have been okay if the Islamo-Nazi regime in Iran had nuclear warheads? It's none of our business, even though they're building intercontinental ballistic missiles. Well, we know that over 90% of you don't agree with that, but that's their position. That's their position. How many of you think the Epstein matter is the most important matter in the country? And yet they won't tell us why. Why is the Epstein matter the most important matter in the country? Does it reveal something about Donald Trump? Obviously not, because they didn't reveal it when the Democrats had the quote-unquote files. Does it reveal something about a certain Democrat in any significant way? Obviously not, at least not yet. They haven't released it. There's no evidence of anything other than the guy was a serial rapist and got what he deserved at his own hand, apparently. And so we should stab Donald Trump in the back because his administration didn't come up with something really cool, really compelling, really brutal. Seems to be the Joe Rogan argument these days, who's stabbing the president in the back left and right. Tarlson, who's stabbing the president in the back left and right. And others, who I shall name at some point. We stand with the president, you and I. We know what battle is taking place in this country between good and evil and right and wrong, between negative power and positive power. We see Mondani. We see Omar. We see Tlaib. We see AOC. And scores of other. In the Democrat Party, we see Bernie Sanders. We see them all. We see what the Islamists want and what they're doing to destroy the Judeo-Christian faith system, to destroy the West, to destroy our colleges and universities. We see it. We're not stupid. We see what's happened to Europe. Europe has been conquered in many respects. Paris and London and Toronto to the north of us. And we want nothing to do with it. Donald Trump fights it. Donald Trump has secured the border. Donald Trump is trying to reindustrialize America. Donald Trump is trying to build back our military. Donald Trump backs the blue, local and federal law enforcement. Donald Trump is trying to reduce the size of the central government, both in the amount of money it spends and in the number of employees it hires. This is a good man who's done more conservative things than almost any Republican president in your lifetime. So those who stab him in the back, those who work with the radical left media, those who collude with the people who are undermining this republic, they're not friends of ours. They're not influencers. They're bastards. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
How many times have you told someone, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? Now, that's great advice for most things, but not so much for a cell phone. See, over time, the battery life fades, the processor can't keep up, and it's fallen in the toilet perhaps one too many times. Fortunately, thanks to Pure Talk, your cell phone is something you can replace without feeling guilty. When you switch to Pure Talk this month, they're going to give you a Samsung Galaxy A36 for free with a $35 qualifying plan. Wow, just $35 a month for talk, text, and data, and a free Samsung phone, the scratch-resistant Gorilla Glass, and a battery that lasts all day. All on America's most dependable 5G network. Look, supporting companies like Pure Talk is a really good thing. You win by cutting your cell phone bill in half. They win by hiring more Americans and helping more veterans. Make the switch in as little as 10 minutes. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin to get your free phone today. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin. Switch to my wireless company, America's wireless company, Pure Talk. What I'm trying to explain here is, let's say you have, those of you who are married, those of us who are married, you have a disagreement with your wife or husband. Of course you do. It's the nature. We're not identical twins. That would be illegal anyway. But you can love someone as deeply as imaginable and have a disagreement here and there, difference of opinion. That's normal. That happens all the time. But you don't stab them in the back rhetorically. I'm never going to talk to you again. I don't love you anymore. You go live at that side of the house. I'll live at this side of that sort of thing. In fact, even worse. In fact, I should have married what's her name or what's his name instead of you. Well, this is what these punks do. These so-called influencers, they're non-influenced. They're de-influenced. They're narcissists. They think they're more important than anybody else. And together they think they're unbeatable. Unbeatable? Unbeatable of what? And so this is how they treat President Trump. They've been riding his coattails. They still like to go to the White House in Mar-a-Lago. They still like to be able to text him, and he texts them, I suppose. But they're stabbing him in the back. I'll be right back. How many times have you told someone, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? Now, that's great advice for most things, but not so much for a cell phone. See, over time, the battery life fades, the processor can't keep up, and it's fallen in the toilet perhaps one too many times. Fortunately, thanks to Pure Talk, your cell phone is something you can replace without feeling guilty. When you switch to Pure Talk this month, they're going to give you a Samsung Galaxy A36 for free with a $35 qualifying plan. Wow, just $35 a month for talk, text, and data, and a free Samsung phone, the scratch-resistant Gorilla Glass, and a battery that lasts all day. All on America's most dependable 5G network. Look, supporting companies like Pure Talk is a really good thing. You win by cutting your cell phone bill in half. They win by hiring more Americans and helping more veterans. Make the switch in as little as 10 minutes. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin to get your free phone today. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin. Switch to my wireless company, America's wireless company, Pure Talk.
He's driving the media mad. Mark Levin. Call in with your outrage. 877-381-3811.
We're really working hard here, folks, for you. We've got 2 great shows this week and tomorrow night on Life, Liberty, and Levin, 8 p.m. Eastern. I hope you'll set your DVR and watch it live. We have Ambassador Mike Huckabee, fantastic, and the fantastic Ben Domenech. And I have a hell of an opening statement, so I hope you'll watch it. It's a killer show. Really big deal. And then Sunday, another killer show. We have my opening statement. We're going to be focusing a lot on Hillary Clinton, Obama, and this Russia scandal. But we're going to do a deeper dive and a broader dive, and we're going to attach a lot more of these dots. You know, from a legal perspective and another perspective. So that's Sunday, again, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. You can set your DVR and watch it live. Do both, or either. But just check it out. Saturday and Sunday, every weekend, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Also, please don't forget, tomorrow's the day. Just tomorrow. I will be at Books and Greetings in Northvale, New Jersey, the Northvale Square Mall for our signing. Anybody who can hear me in the WABC radio area, as well as on the internet and our podcast and the live streaming and YouTube and satellite, we'd love to have you. And I don't leave until I shake every hand and sign every book. Look forward to seeing you. That's tomorrow already, 1 p.m. 1 p.m. I'll be traveling to New Jersey ultra early in the morning just to be with you folks. So I hope we'll see you there. Did I cover everything? Also, a reminder, you can always listen to this program on your favorite radio station, but if we don't happen to be there for some reason, you can hear us on virtually every platform that exists. For instance, our podcast platform, just pick your favorite podcast platform. We're on all of them. And search for Mark Levin Show. It's free. Also on YouTube, we have our own YouTube channel. Search Mark Levin Show on YouTube, and there we are. We have the Mark Levin app, the iHeartRadio app. We have live streaming. We have Sirius Satellite Radio. I don't know. There's others too, I guess. But we're not only heard nationwide, we are heard worldwide. So this program's heard worldwide. The Fox program is seen worldwide. You have a lot of influence. Much more than you might think. You really do. Because I think you and I, we agree on most things, don't we? Very, very important. See, I don't conduct this show with, I'm only asking questions. I don't need a guest for 3 hours. I'm only asking questions. Then what good are you? What do you have to offer? You have any of your own brain power? I think that's a fair question to ask a host, isn't it, Mr. Producer? What is it exactly that you're trying to convey? If you're just shooting from the hip, or you just have a hate on, and you're just rambling, you know, you can get that at a mental institution. Or some other public place. It's really not worth your time. It's not worth my time. I don't waste my time with people like that. Who cares? Who cares? You can talk to anybody like that. But what is it that they're conferring? What is it that they're providing to you? Seriously. What kind of service is it? I am never more honored when somebody calls here and says, I learned this, that, or the other from you. Or, I used to be a liberal, but now I'm not, and this is why. It sends chills down my spine. It really does. We don't have to, promote radical extremists, bigoted viewpoints here. That's not what we do. That's not what I want to do. The President of the United States has sent 2 nuclear submarines. We don't know exactly, nor should we, He's positioned them closer to Russia because Russia keeps threatening us. Now, the way the left and the isolationists and the Biden regime would respond is to attack their own country, our country. Easy enough to do. That's what they do. Not this president. This president's a real commander-in-chief. Nuclear submarines. That doesn't mean they have nuclear weapons. Doesn't mean they don't either. The most powerful weapon on the face of the earth is a nuclear submarine, and the most powerful among them are our nuclear submarines. They are powered by their own internal nuclear energy. But yes, they also carry, if the commander-in-chief wants them to carry, nuclear warheads on missiles. Missile systems that can attack underwater, missile systems that can be fired from far beneath the sea into the skies and hit their target within 12 inches. It's American know-how and technology. Medvedev, who is Putin's lapdog, keeps making threats. And those threats he's making, obviously, are Putin's threats, or this guy wouldn't repeat them or say them. Threats against your country. He's actually threatened war. So President Trump has moved 2 nuclear submarines, or he's moving them in a better position geographically under the ocean. Immediately we get the isolationists on cable and otherwhere saying we shouldn't be playing the game of chicken. Who's playing the game of chicken? You know, I listen to this and I think to myself, these guys pretend to be real men, tough guys. That's the real thing here. We represent men. We're high in testosterone here. Yeah, that's what's missing. And they wear like these really tight T-shirts. You've noticed, Mr. Producer? Because they work out. They think people really give a damn what they look like. Oh, yeah. They all want to be built like UFC fighters, but none of them are UFC fighters. They're really tough, you know. Some of them are comedians. Some of them are commentators. Oh, yeah. You ought to see me. You ought to see me when when I'm doing my exercises. You really ought to see me when I'm doing my jiu-jitsu class. Yeah, oh, my God. Nobody can beat me. I'm just unbelievable. Real men. Then when it comes to facing down Putin, it's, hey, guys, what are we doing? I'm very concerned about this. I mean, I don't know. Why are we being provocative? There must be something wrong with President Trump. He reminds me of Biden. I don't know. Why are we doing these things? Because they're stupid. They may be working on their musculature, but they're not working on their brains. There's not enough upstairs, you see. They're good at slogans, don't get me wrong. They memorize slogans really well. They're good at knee-jerk, sort of ideological responses that they've heard from somebody else or they think makes sense. But they have no knowledge. They have no basis for their views. They have no context. But they are tough, boy. Oh, I'm a tough guy. But Putin, I don't know about Putin. I'm very nervous about this. I don't think so, you know. They have no concept of strategy. They have no concept of tactics. They have no concept of military history or any kind of it. They have no concept of human nature. They're egomaniacal. They're narcissistic. They look in the mirror and that's what they know. What they see in the mirror. That's it. That's it. But I know how to ask questions, man. I'll tell you what. But your guests are morons. President's doing exactly the right thing. Exactly the right thing. There are evil people in the world. There are evil ideologies. And they're enormously dangerous. You can't go around saying you're America first when every time something happens, you blame your own country. That's not America first. That's stupid. That's unpatriotic. That's un-American. That's what they are. That's who they are. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
How many times have you told someone, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? Now, that's great advice for most things, but not so much for a cell phone. See, over time, the battery life fades, the processor can't keep up, and it's fallen in the toilet perhaps one too many times. Fortunately, thanks to Pure Talk, your cell phone is something you can replace without feeling guilty. When you switch to Pure Talk this month, they're going to give you a Samsung Galaxy A36 for free with a $35 qualifying plan. Wow, just $35 a month for talk, text, and data, and a free Samsung phone, the scratch-resistant Gorilla Glass, and a battery that lasts all day. All on America's most dependable 5G network. Look, supporting companies like Pure Talk is a really good thing. You win by cutting your cell phone bill in half. They win by hiring more Americans and helping more veterans. Make the switch in as little as 10 minutes. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin to get your free phone today. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin. Switch to my wireless company, America's wireless company, Pure Talk. Since we lose our third hour in New York, I just want to mention one more time tomorrow's great book signing. 1 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow at Books and Greetings, North Vale Square, North Vale, New Jersey. Can't wait to see. If you need directions, go to their site, booksandgreetings.com. It's a beautiful little town, very historic. Nice little restaurants, I noticed, easy to get to. You can make a day of it, have a good time, and you deserve it. And I'll see you then, and we'll get to see each other. You'll get to get a book I think you're going to like, signed by me in one of the few signings that I'm going to do. So let's see if we can get a whole ton of people out there and make it worth your while. It'll be worth your while. I promise you this. John Brennan's on MSLSD yesterday. Listen to this. Cut one, go.
Unfortunately, I think a lot of the policies that are being perpetrated or being propagated by the Trump administration also lack that credibility that the United States government used to have. And that's why we see a lot of these countries coming out, recognizing the state of Palestine, really criticizing, the Trump administration for its continued tolerance of allowing what many people, I think, understandably say is a genocide in Gaza.
This is incredible. Syria was genocide. Yemen's currently genocide. Genocide in Africa. Islamists killing Christians. Communist Chinese genocide against Muslims, the Uyghurs, against Christians, against the Tibetans. But it's Israel that's committing acts of genocide in Gaza while it's trying to feed the people there, pushing hundreds and hundreds of thousands of tons of food and clothing and medicine and water. Thousands of 18-wheelers over the course of time. Food drops through airplanes. And they're the ones committing genocide against the Palestinians. Not the terrorist group that we have video of that I've posted slaughtering its own people if they dare to try and get food. Hamas is not only a terrorist organization, it's run like a gangster outfit. They want all the food to go through Hamas so they can keep as much as they can, feed their terrorists, cholera, and sell the rest to the Palestinians there. UNRWA, the UN is working with them, which is exactly why our president says we're done with UNRWA. It needs to be dismantled. The UN is participating in terrorist activity. And this is Hamas's last desperate effort to hang on to power. It will not release the Israeli hostages. It did release 2 videos of 2 hostages, or 1 photograph and 1 video. Now they were starving to death. Grown men who look like the Holocaust pictures that you've seen in the past. That's right. You haven't heard a damn thing from anybody about them, have you? If there's starvation taking place, Hamas has done it. It's done everything. It kills Palestinians, it kills Jews, and it kills everybody else. Who's fooling whom around here? I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Our last hour of the week. Been quite a week, hasn't it? You and I together at this national town hall meeting. Camala Harris has a book coming out. She doesn't want to run for governor because she wants to run for president. Now, she's on with this clown Colbert who doesn't want to let go, even though they're losing millions over at CBS. A contract's a contract, of course. But he literally has no talent. What the hell is he going to do? You know, he was like a B-C actor. He has no talent like John Leibowitz has no talent, quite frankly. But there you go. So here's Camala Harris, and she's on there with Colbert, and this explains why he has no ratings and she has no mind. Cut 6, go.
Who's leading the Democratic Party? I'm just curious.
There are lots of leaders. And
there's generally a leader of the Democratic Party. You know, like, oh, that's the leader of the Democratic Party. And who comes to mind?
I think there are a lot of, I'm not going to go through names because then I'm going to leave somebody out and then I'm going to hear about it. But let me say this. I think it is a mistake for us who want to figure out how to get out and through this and get out of it, to put it on the shoulders of any one person. It's really on all of our shoulders.
Well, it must be on her shoulders. She ran and lost, and she's a disaster. And get through what? Peace and prosperity? Yeah, let's get through that. Real head case. Cut 7, go.
I believe right now that it is important to do what I can do from the positions that I have held and what I have seen about the world and our country to get out there and remind everyone who needs reminding right now of their power. It is
power, baby. Remind your power, your power. You know, I'm just reminding people. People can't stand her any more than they can stand Biden. This is the truth. They can't stand Stephen Colbert. They can't stand any of these people. Go ahead.
It is our country, and it is important, I think, that in this moment where people have become so deflated and despondent.
No, they haven't. People are not deflated and despondent. Maybe your little circle is. But most people are not. Go ahead.
And afraid.
Yes.
That those of us who...
Afraid of what? What is she talking about? Does she know what she's talking about? And there's Colbert. Yes, we understand. Go ahead.
Which I do right now, not being in an office where I'm campaigning for that office, to be out there and to talk with folks and remind them of their power and their importance.
Now, let's stop just for a second. Now, her book is not about on power. My book is. But this is very, very important. And I didn't even realize she was saying these things. I hadn't heard this clip before. I try not to hear the clips before because I want to use them spontaneously when I can. She keeps talking about power. She's not wrong about that. Her application of it is haywire. She's a nut job. Got it. But we have got to set this issue of power straight, and we have to understand they are serious when they talk about power. They are serious about taking your power, your individual sovereignty and liberty, and your rights. They are serious about controlling the civil society through government edict. You got a taste of this during the pandemic. You got a taste of it the last 4 years. They are serious about this. And so am I, about fighting it and about conquering their type of power with our kind of power. So it's very, very important in order to participate in this battle over ideas, this battle over language, this battle over thought, that you are equipped, that you are armed with the tools to be the Paul Reveres, to be the Thomas Paines, to be the Thomas Jeffersons. This is what I want you to do. This is what we need, an army of people who can fight this battle and engage. You don't have to run outside with poster board and all the rest. No. At social events, at the dinner table, the breakfast table, trying to influence family and friends, even people who agree with us. So they get out there, they're armed with the information and the arguments, and they can make them. It's crucial. We're going to lose the country. The country doesn't end today. It doesn't begin today. 4 years from now, 8 years from now, 10 years from now, what's this country going to look like? Despite the best efforts of the president and the Republican Congress, what is this country going to look like? So now more than ever, it's on our shoulders to make the case. And that's the point of the book, On Power. And again, I had no idea she was going to get into this in her own bizarre way. Go ahead.
Well, one of the things...
I mean, I just want to put a fine point on this. You can never let anybody take your power from you.
See? Yeah.
You can never let anybody take your power from you.
And this is a battle over power. And the response to that is, I'm not taking anybody's power. You are. You're substituting your power, the power of a cabal of leftist Democrats, for we the sovereign. And I want to go through everything you propose as it applies to power and who has the power. You see what I mean, ladies and gentlemen? This is our argument. The Marxists are always making this argument. The Democrats are always making this argument, and we never make it, and we never engage it, and we have the stronger case. We have the stronger case. I've done all the heavy lifting. I spent months on this. And it's something that I'm trying to pass on to you for less than $20. It's the truth. More of her in this power. Cut 7. I had no idea she was going to get into this. Cut 7, go.
I just want to remind everybody, you warned everyone about the future under our present president. You said he would prosecute his political enemies. He would cut Medicaid, Medicare. He would ignore court orders. He would alienate our allies. He would give massive tax cuts to the rich. And I know you're not here to say, I told you so.
But she told us so, and none of it's happened. Again, I have a chapter on language. This is it. This is Colbert. This is her. He's not cutting Medicaid from legitimate Medicaid recipients. That is, legal citizens, legal aliens. He's cutting it from illegal aliens, people who are dipping in 2, 3, 4 times, people who are taking checks from people who have already passed away, and able-bodied young men and women who only have to work 20 hours a week, and their work can be effectively as a volunteer. There is not a single cut in Medicaid against legitimate citizens and legal aliens who are getting Medicaid. There's no cuts in Medicare, no cuts in Social Security. He's not ignoring any court orders. The courts are ignoring the Supreme Court's order. He didn't give massive tax cuts to the rich. He gave massive tax cuts to working people, Mr. and Mrs. America. So in addition to these points, then you need to turn to this issue of power. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Your view is what? You're lying? You're trying to brainwash people? You're trying to control what people can say and think with your propaganda? You don't want a legitimate debate? Power over language? The use of language, the way totalitarian and tyrannical regimes use them? That's what you're doing. They wouldn't even know how to respond to that. Power? You don't believe in the Constitution. You don't believe that the people are the sovereign. You never talk about individual liberty or property rights. You're always talking about government. Power? Let's talk about power. How would you reduce the power of Washington? How would you reduce the power of unelected judges? How would you reduce the power of unelected bureaucrats? You wouldn't, because you created them and you support them and you want more of them. How about the family unit, the nuclear family? You've been attacking it. The power of parents to raise their children. You don't believe in that. The unions, the teacher unions that back you, they don't believe in that. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, when you're armed with this information and these arguments, it becomes very, very simple. It becomes almost reflexive at a point. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
I'm posting something on my social media I hope you'll look at and share earlier in the program. We stand with President Trump. We are MAGA. We stand with President Trump. I hope you share it with as many people as you can. Look, I don't live on the internet. We post a lot. Things come to mind. I send them to Mr. Producer and he posts them, but they're all mine. Some people, they live off there. They make a living off there. They do their podcasts. I don't do all that. I'm here on radio, which has as ancillary a podcast, and we also have our Sirius satellite and our YouTube and so forth, but I don't live on the internet. I do radio, I do television, and so and I write books. And so my methodology, my method of communication reaches far more people, and it doesn't just reach a certain age group. It reaches all age groups. And I think it's important that we stand with President Trump, should get out there, that we to make it clear that Make America Great Again is not some narrow cabal of these mentally ill people who claim to be influencers, and they influence absolutely nobody. But you'll notice they have this incestuous relationship with the media on the left. They keep promoting them, and they like that. They think that's great. So they're sellouts more than anything else. They're sellouts, in my humble opinion. Here's President Trump on Camala Harris. Cut 5, Mr. Producer, go.
Camala Harris, as you know, is not running for governor of California. She's not going to do it. What do you see in her political future, sir?
Well, she can't speak. She can't talk. She can't do an interview. I thought it was a very strange campaign that we had. But, you know, I had 2 of them. We were up by like this massive number of points on Biden, and they said, let's change to Kamala. Nobody knew who Kamala was. Nobody knew her last name, Harris. And they said, we're going to get Vice President Harris. Everyone said, who the hell is Harris? They only knew her by the first name. But no, I thought she was a terrible candidate. Look, don't forget, she didn't really get the nomination. I mean, that whole nomination was strange. She was the first one out. You know, she took a good amount of points with her when she announced, but nobody knew her. And once they got to know her, she dropped out very shortly after she started. And she started with a pretty good, you know, she was like in 2nd or 3rd place. But I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't call her a skilled politician. Would you?
She's also coming out with a book. Any plans to buy it?
I don't know. I think I'm going to buy it. I'd love to see it. No. I'd find it. Look, I find everything in politics interesting. I sort of enjoy politics. She wasn't a skilled person. You know, you have skilled politicians, really skilled politicians, and then you have some that aren't. And she was put in a very tough position, I think. She did have a 6-week honeymoon. They were told me, the pros said, you know what, she's going to have a 6-week. And she did. She was like untouchable in terms of everybody thought great. But she didn't do any interviews or anything, which was strange. Not even friendly interviews with friendly reporters like her right there, a really friendly reporter. And you know what happened? People said, what's wrong with her? Why isn't she doing? She made a mistake. She should have done interviews. She didn't run a great campaign, but we beat Biden, and then we had to beat, nobody's beaten two. I had to beat two. That's like Dana White, the great Dana White has a fight, and he has a fighter that's getting the hell knocked out of him. They say, well, let's take him out and put somebody else in. Didn't seem fair to me at the time, but where are we? We're in the White House. So, I mean, so it worked out.
He's so funny. He really is. And very wise, I might add. This guy, Harry Enton, CNN chief data analyst, this guy's very entertaining with data. I've never seen anything like it in my life, and he's on CNN today. What's going on with the Democrat Party? Cut 11, go.
Democrats at this point are historically divided. It is a complete and utter mess. It is messier than a hoarder's basement. What are we talking about here? The national early poll leader, 25% plus. Normally, that's where Democrats are. Biden was at 25% plus in 2020. Hillary Clinton was in 08 and 16. Gore was in 00 and 04. At this particular point, there is no one in the Democratic race for president who's polling at 25% plus. The water is quite warm. If you're a Democrat potentially thinking about running in 2028, jump right in, because at this point there is no front runner.
What do you think? Is that because how people view the Democratic Party right now, is that contributing to this?
Yeah, I think that is in large part of what's going on, is one of the reasons why there is no front runner. Nobody wants to put anybody up at the top of their ballot list, is because at this particular point, the Democratic brand is in the basement. It is total and complete garbage in the mind of the American public. The Democratic Party's net favorable rating, record lows in all three. Wall Street Journal, 30 points underwater. CNN, 26 points underwater. Gallup, 26 points underwater. And that is being driven in large part by discontent within the Democratic base. The Democratic base wants something different. We'll ultimately end up seeing who they choose. It'll be quite the thing who ultimately gets the rose.
They might hear that and say, that's fantastic. But they may take over the biggest city in our country. And not just there. What does the Democrat base want? That's the question. And that's what we need to be mindful about. I know, I watch people, I listen to how they analyze these things. They say, we'll run against this Mondami from one end of the country to the other, and we will destroy the Democrat Party. No, you won't. You will win in certain areas that you may not have otherwise won. But they're doing this for a reason. The radicalism. It is a battle within their party. Really, between the Stalinists and the Trotskyites. There's not a great difference. It's not like they have constitutionalists fighting with leftists. It's leftists fighting with ultra-leftists. That's the truth. And we'll see how this shakes out. But it's not going to be pretty, because they are united in several respects. They're united in their hate for our country. They're united in their hate for our military. They're united in our hate for our cops. They're united in their hate for you, which is why they want open borders. They're united in their hate for Israel. They're united in their anti-Semitism, their anti-Americanism. So there are things that do unite them. It's a battle between the Stalinists and the Trotskyites. That's what it is. I'll be right back.
Saving America, one show at a time. The Mark Levin Show, 877-381-3811.
Well, we have some breaking news here, ladies and gentlemen, from the New York Post. There you go. Pays to listen to this program every evening, especially on Friday. Ex-Trump prosecutor Jack Smith under investigation by Office of Special Counsel after claims of playing politics. The Office of Special Counsel has launched a formal investigation into Jack Smith, the first official legal probe into his conduct, the New York Post has learned. Smith is the Justice Department lawyer who oversaw 2 criminal investigations into President Donald Trump during the Biden administration. One into Trump's handling of classified documents, the other about January 6. An email reviewed by the Post states the Hatch Act unit, which enforces a law restricting government employees from engaging in political activities, has begun reviewing the former special counsel for the United States Department of Justice. The email was written by senior counsel Charles Baldus at the Office of the Special Counsel. Quote, I appreciate the Office of Special Counsel taking this seriously and launching an investigation into Jack Smith's conduct. No one is above the law. Jack Smith's actions were clearly driven to hurt President Trump's election, and Smith should be held fully accountable, said Intelligence Committee Chairman Senator Tom Cotton in a statement to the Post. The Office of Special Counsel opened the investigation into Jack Smith after Cotton wrote a letter earlier this week alleging Smith took blatantly political action to undermine President Trump in his 2024 bid. Smith was also appointed by President Biden's Attorney General Merrick Garland, resigned from his post as special counsel for the Department of Justice in January after Trump assumed power. And I will remind you, America, that two former attorneys general, Edwin Meese and Mukasey, both filed a brief in the federal district court in Florida saying that Mr. Smith's appointment was unconstitutional and the judge upheld it and she was right. Smith's actions as prosecutor have been widely criticized by Republicans who saw the prosecutions as an effort to weaponize the justice system against Trump and hobble his election chances in 2024. In his letter, Tom Cotton, don't you love Tom Cotton? Cotton explains how Smith's actions undermined Trump's political efforts. Quote, Jack Smith's legal actions were nothing more, cholera, than a tool for the Biden and Harris campaigns. This isn't just unethical, it's very likely illegal campaign activity from a public official, wrote Cotton. Now notice the difference between Tom Cotton and what he's doing and these phony influencers. Cotton accuses Smith of blatant political actions to interfere with the presidential run, including speeding up his investigation to schedule trial dates that would interfere with the important political moments, such as the Iowa caucuses. The actions are not standard, necessary, justified, Cotton added. They were the actions of a political actor, masquerading as a public official. This is breaking tonight. Smith has not publicly responded to Cotton's allegations. During his tenure, he maintained his investigation, yammer, yap. I want to salute Tom Cotton. I wish I had the idea, but he did, and he has a lot of smart ideas. He will be my guest on Sunday, by the way, on Life, Liberty, and Levin. Did I mention 8 p.m. Eastern Time? Never miss it. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. If I'm not there anymore, I think you're going to miss me, no? Wouldn't you miss me, Mr. Producer, if I wasn't here anymore? You might go broke, too. I don't know. But seriously, I do things a little differently. Well, what do you make of that, America? He should be under investigation, as should Merrick Garland, a.k.a. Meritless Garland, the Attorney General. As should Lisa Monaco. Who's she, Mark? She was the Deputy Attorney General. She had worked for Obama. I absolutely think she was the invisible hand. The Svengali, if you will, over there at the Department of Injustice. It looked to me like Meritless Garland had a little bit of Mueller going on there, who had a little bit of Biden going on there. You get my drift, Mr. Producer? Oh, yeah. They should look into the former head of the Assistant Attorney General of the Criminal Division. They should look at the former head of the Public Integrity Unit within the Criminal Division. I know where all the bodies are buried. They should even go into the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights. They should find out who was involved in what. Christopher Wray should not escape examination. Neither should his former deputy. I think his name was Abbott or Abate, something of that sort. Easy enough to find out. It ought to be dealt with. And I'm going to talk about this at length on Sunday. Sunday. And tomorrow, at Great Life, Liberty, and Levin, we have Ambassador Mike Huckabee, fresh from his visit in Gaza, and our friend Ben Dominique. That's Saturday, Sunday, Tom Cotton, and our friend Mark Thiessen. It's going to be great. The openings are going to be great. And, of course, we have our great book signing tomorrow. Literally less than 24 hours away. In fact, it's 16 hours away, Mr. Producer. Are you going to be there, Rich? So you're going to get to meet Mr. Producer. Now, that's a draw. That's a draw. You're like in Las Vegas, a lounge act. You're like the introductory act, no? That's a big deal. You get to see what he looks like. Good man. Rich Cementa. You can call him Mr. Producer. Does your wife call you Mr. Producer now? Mr. Producer? No? Who does? Your uncles call you Mr. Producer? But that's kind of a nice thing, don't you think? You do love it? Okay. All right. They ever call you the Great One? People think I gave that name to myself. I give names to myself. Hannity gave me that name. Walk around calling myself the... I remember as a kid growing up, the Great One was Jackie Gleason. Do you know who Jackie Gleason is, Mr. Producer? You do? What'd you do, watch a movie or something? He used to have the greatest variety show. And he moved it to Miami. I believe it was from New York to Miami, or L.A. to Miami. And the introduction was just great. It was basically the scene of an ocean moving into the shoreline in Miami, and so it was great. And he was hilarious, but of course he overate and he smoked like a chimney, so that was that. But, oh, you watched The Honeymooners. I don't think you can produce that anymore, can you? I'm going to hit you, Alice. I'm going to give you a big one, Alice. I don't think you're allowed to sit to the moon, Alice. Right. Instead, we get John Leibowitz, Jon Stewart. And then you got Colbert. You know what? People say the media is dead. It is dead. But comedy is almost dead, too. The truth. It's almost dead. My wife and I are watching old shows of Don Rickles. Don Rickles wouldn't exist today. He'd be woked out. He'd be woked out. He couldn't do it anymore. I'm watching these roasts, these Dean Martin roasts. I'm dating myself, but you can be 14 years old and watch them. Those roasts would have been banned. They would have been gone. They would have been gone. So we already have language and thought control, you see. It's a terrible, terrible thing. It's too bad, because younger people miss out on an awful lot. How much time do I have, Rich? Well, let's listen to Biden at the National Bar Association. And by the way, the National Bar Association isn't, like a drinking bar, because when he slurs his speech, you can understand why the National Alcoholic Bar Association would want him to speak. But the National Bar is like a legal group of slip and fall lawyers. Cut 10, go.
Judges matter. Courts matter. The law matters.
Depends matter.
Constitution matters. I think a lot of Americans are starting to realize that under the pressure we're under now with this guy we have as president.
What are you talking about, you moron? Idiot.
Get ready, folks. This is just starting. I'm proud I've appointed judges doing their best to be independent, fair, impartial.
Yeah, sure.
Respecting the rule of law.
No, they don't.
Upholding the Constitution. I wish I could say the same for the executive branch.
Oh, you're something else. You're something else. Here we have this whole Obama-Hillary massive scandal. Here we have this moron who ignored at least 3 Supreme Court rulings. 3 Supreme Court rulings. Violated the Espionage Act when he was a senator. Violated the Espionage Act when he was a vice president. Special counsel said, look, I can't really charge the guy. He's got the brain of a sack of potatoes. What am I going to do? And he was wrong. He didn't have the brain of a sack of potatoes. He had the brain of a jar of applesauce. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
So where we be, Mr. Producer? I honor you every single week with it, as I do our police officers, our firefighters, our military, and all those men and women who spend every day and every night trying to protect us. They're better than I am. They're better than I am. And so this is for all of you. Here we go. folks. The week is officially over. The weekend begins right now. I hope to see you folks. Tomorrow, 1 p.m., Books and Greetings, Northvale Square, Northvale, New Jersey. Come on, let's make it a thing. Let's make it a happening, and I'll see you there, and I can't wait. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our truckers, the men and women in Ukraine and Israel. Israel, we've got your back. Good night, Spritey and Griffey and Pepsi. Good night, Smokey and Zelda and Indy and Patton and Rory. Good night, Gigi and Marty and Barney. We miss you all. Good night, Dad. Good night, Mom. Good night, Leo. Good night, Joe. Good night, Bernie. Good night, Teddy. Good night, Lou. And good night, all you great patriots who came before us. We miss you badly. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Life, Liberty, and Levin, 8 p.m. tomorrow night Eastern. Don't miss it. Same with Sunday. Grab your copy of On Power. I know you're going to love it. I'd like to hear from you on Monday. Let me know what you think and leave your comments at Amazon. Have a fantastic, safe, and happy weekend. I'll see you tomorrow night at Fox, and those of you who can, I'll see you tomorrow at the book signing. Be well.